Pei Vav, Kuf Pei Vav. So b'siyata d'shmaya, we are going to try to go the length over here in Kuf Pei Vav, which is basically one big shaila, which continues into Kuf Pei Zayin, which the Ilam is holding in right now, which is the sugya of Rasa Machos Tashmish, which begins in Kuf Pei Vav with the Gimel Bedikos Rishonais, which more particularly is the shaila whether a woman without a vest, Isha She'in La vest, whether she has to do Bedikas or not, which I was just looking to confirm, that is the title of Kuf Pei Vav. Bedikas Isha Bein Lefnei Bein La'achar Tashmish. What? Could have asked you what the title is. Avada. Not only do you remember Simanim and Sifim, you know the titles. Baruch Hashem. So, again, to break down the Gemara, obviously it's Gemara and Daf Yud Aleph, Yud Beis and Beis, and the big shaila in the Gemara is whether it's a Sukkah B'Tairis or not, whether the din that the Gemara discusses of Bedikas is only a woman dealing with Tairis, or it's even Labaila. Rav Chanina ben Antignis, we're trying to figure out what is his din. And when the dust settles, we basically have three shitas in the Rishonim, three basic mahalchim. We have the shita that you have to do a Bedika always, you never have to do a Bedika, and then you have to do a Bedika, the Gimel Pa'amim Rishonim. We're honing in on after. We're honing in on after. Very good question. And the Bedikas before are pashtas pinned on the Bedikas after. There are two basic mahalchim to explain the Bedikas before. You learn Rashi. Rashi says it's a migu. Rashi doesn't really explain more than that. Rashi says migu, since you required a Bedika after, you require a Bedika for. End of Rashi. You don't really get much more guidance on that shayla until you go all the way down to the Drisha, and the Drisha gives us a little bit more, and the Drisha gives you a bit more of a Svaradika reason. It says the Drisha that if you do a Bedika after without doing a Bedika before, what's the Bedika after worth? Because you're not going to necessarily know that the dam came due to the Tashmish. Now, in the world of the Rishonim, we find something very interesting over here, as everyone here has noticed and commented, that the shita to not do bedikas at all is, let's call it Rashi. You know, everyone's trying to bring Rashi onto his team over here. The shita to do bedikas always, we're going to call the Rach, Rabbeinu Chananel. Now, really, it's the Rosh also, right? And you saw the absolute credence and value that the Rosh gives to Rabbeinu Chananel over here, which is even quoted by the Shulchan Aruch, quoted by the Torah, that the Rosh's lashon is, I don't know if you saw it inside, he says, Rashi. Really, the Rosh wanted to go like Rashi. And perhaps the world would have changed drastically if the Rosh went with Rashi. The sukkah is a sukkah b'tairis, and if you're not a sukkah b'tairis, you don't have to do bedikas, and therefore, when the Beis HaMikdash comes, will be a different story. But Bisman has said there's no bedikas. However, the Rosh concludes, "El shaloi malani libi lahakel." I'm nervous. How could I be mekel? Ki divrei Rabbeinu Chananel divrei kabbalahim. Now that term, that phrase, you find many times in halacha, divrei Rabbeinu Chananel divrei kabbalahim, and this is the reason why many fold to Rabbeinu Chananel. What exactly that means, divrei kabbalahim, we'll leave. But what happens based on that is that you have the Rosh and Rabbeinu Chananel saying to do bedikas always. You have Rashi saying to never do bedikas. Then you have the Rif, the very, very famous Rif that comes along and says you have to do bedikas Gimel Pa'amim Rishonais. Of course, within this explanation, we're trying to explain when the Gemara says, Hein tikuneha, hein ivuseha, what exactly does that mean? So the Rif has a beautiful explanation. He says that the three bedikas are that which could help her and that which could hurt her. These are three bedikas that either say she has a chazaka that her tashmish caused her to see dam, and that's ivuseha, she has to get divorced. And then you continue into Kuf Pei Zayin, figuring out how many times she could get remarried. Is there something called a bedika? Can we figure out where the dam came from, etc.? And hein tikunah, or says the if you do bedika 3 times, you have a good old-fashioned chazaka that she doesn't see dam, machmas tashmish, and everything is very good and dandy. Now, interesting as you all saw that within the, as the Beis Yosef was quoting this sheet of Rabbeinu Chananel, he threw in a line from Rabbeinu Yerucham, which he quotes again later on, a line that a Muberes doesn't have to do Bedikos, which of course, when you see it in the Beis Yosef, it doesn't have much meaning to you. But then, as we go through the Sugya, we see how incredibly important that line is. So, that is the world of the Rishonim. So, we go from the Rishonim, the world of the Gemara through the Rishonim. We go from the world of the Gemara to Rishonim, we open up a Shulchan Aruch, and we find the Mechaber. Now, what happens over here in this Mechaber Ramah is, perhaps is a limud how to learn Mechaber Ramah, or perhaps is a limud that sometimes you shouldn't jump to conclusions in Mechaber Ramah. Because sometimes we find that the Achronim come along and they say, you're learning completely wrong in the Mechaber Ramah. So let's get there. So what does the Mechaber say? The Mechaber quotes two Shitas. There's a Stam and the Yesh Aimrim. The Stam Shita is the Rif. Tu Bedikas Gimel Pam Marishainim. The Yesh Aimrim is the Yesh Aimrim is the Shita of the Rambam. Shita of the Rambam, which is the Shita of Rabbeinu Chananel and the Rosh, that you have to do Bedikos always. Now, excuse me, I focused on the Rosh and the Rach. Of course, the Rambam is there also, which is very important, as we'll mention in a moment. So, the Mechaber, so what's the psak of the Mechaber? Stam, Yesh Aimrim, Halacha, Ke, Stam. So you would think, what is the Mechaber paskening? That you have to do Bedikos 3 times, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Balatanya, very famous, this week time sensitive, comes along and says that is exactly the psak. V'gama Shulchan Aruch, he writes, Lo hevi das ha-Rambam v'ha-Rosh, el sharoyu l'bal nefesh, lo chesh l'daitam, aval lo ikr k'svar rishenesh hevi bistam, kinoida. Now, which is that every stam in the Yesh Aimrim, that there is a bal nefesh should be machmer like the Yesh Aimrim? Interesting. But that's how the Shulchan Aruch Harav here paskins. Interestingly enough, on the page, which probably many of you saw, the Teres HaShlamim says no. Teres HaShlamim says you're learning the Shulchan Aruch incorrect. Even though it's a Stam and a Yesh Aimrim, says the Teres HaShlamim, the Psak halachas like the Yesh Aimrim. Says the Teres HaShlamim on the page that we paskin not like the Stam Shita over here, but rather like the Yesh Aimrim. And I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. Of course, we're in Sif Beis. This is all this rate is in Sif Beis. The Teres HaShlamim, for those who perhaps didn't see it, is in Sif Katan Beis. Oh shoot, it's a very long one. 1 second, let's just see if we can pull out the words that we're looking for. He quotes all the Rishonim over here. He quotes the Rach, Lo Melani Libi Lahakel, the Rosh like the Rach. Okay, he has a ganze shtickle teir over here, and because basically he's coming along to prove that this is not your typical Stam and Yesh Aimrim. And whom only talks about the Yesh Aimrim? Meaning he's coming to explain what the Mechaber did. Correct. But he's coming to prove the Shita of the Yesh Aimrim. 100%. Nearly, but he ends off with interesting words, which we're going to get to soon. If there's a minog, okay. So he says, so the lemaisa, the psak of the Mechaber is not completely clear. And I'd like to read you a Lechem V'Simla. Lechem V'Simla over here. The Lechem V'Simla quotes the Beis Yosef in Akdama. I'm just reading this because a few of us were having a discussion. How does it work with these Rishonim? How does it work with these Rishonim? We have because everyone, as you learned the Beis Yosef, everyone got like this feeling that it's like we're trying to pull Rishonim onto our team. Like what exactly happens over here? So in the Beis Yosef in the Hakdama, if you want to look this up, it's the Hakdama to the Beis Yosef. He explains to you, Rav Yosef Kairi, how he wrote his sefer. And he says, "Ulachein eskamasi eskamti bedaiti ki liyo shloisha amudei hayra." There are 3 pillars of halacha. Who are they? The Rif, the Rambam, and the Rosh. Amarti alibi shebemakim sheshnayim maskin das achos. And I say, says the Beis Yosef, if 2 of the 3 giants pass in one way, nifsek halacha kamaisa. Imloi, aside for b'mixas mekaymais. Shekol Chachmei Yisrael, that all the Chachamim, Rubam, Cholkim Aladeyahi, argue on such a Shita, Ulachein, Pashat Aminag B'Hepach. So the Beis Yosef teaches you how does he work his sefer 2 out of 3, unless the whole world goes the other way. So the Lechem Simla over here says this is one of the exceptions, that we do not go like he says, I don't want to say it's one of the exceptions. He explains that the Shulchan Aruch lo hevi das harambam v'arash meaning really he's going with the stam 3 bedikos, but bal nefesh machmer bedika la'olam, and he even continues. What's the Ramah doing? As many people ask, the Ramah is also a little bit interesting over here. So let's go into the Ramah.
Why can't this be one of the ways that the minhag is dispashed?
Could in a chanami? Which way?
The minhag is dispashed to go like the Rif, not like the Rambam and the Rambam.
But that would go with the Klalim, because it's a stam and Yishayim, and the Rif is the stam. So it's true. That's why I call myself. But the Lechem Simla really explains like you, but he says, but it sounds like he's giving a lot of credence to the Rambam and the Rush over here. Ula Rambam ve'al Rush. So he says that he's just coming to teach you that there is a Chumrah. Okay, comes along the Ramah, and the Ramah says, "Ein tzrichen livda kol dash v'nashal le'achas. El mekan v'chanatz kol ha'ilabid. Ulamachas tzrichen b'dika. V'imnim sadam tamea." So what's the psak of the Ramah? Again, not so clear what the psak of the Ramah is. And Nachamo, the Achrayim argue in psak in Ramah. The Teres Hashlamim, as we said before, learns that the Ramah is going with the Rambam, and learns that the Ramah is taking Bedika La'ilam. Fascinating. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says the same thing. But comes along again the Lechem Simla, as well as the Emek Tshuva or Chatzkel Roth, and they say that no, that the Ramah is going Bedikas 3 times. Now, if everyone here is wondering that we're jumping to Achrayim, what happened to Shach, Taz, etc., well, you already know that answer, because the Shach is about to rock the world. So let's get into there. Excuse me? How do they learn that? Because they learned that Stam v'yisham melach Stam. If the Ramah doesn't argue, so he's going with the Stam. No, it makes sense. Within those 3 times, that's what he's telling you. I don't know if that's the biggest spell. If you want to see Lechem Simla explains, V'gam Sharamah she'igia sham v'yetik lo Rambam v'yitzich lev el mekan chazi yishlami gam kin lo asal lahayris kin halacha laman dechayish. So that's how they jump through the loop. They say the way the Lechem Simla going within his shtickle Torah, he says just like the Machaber wrote down the Rambam and the Rosh for the Machmirim, the Ramah comments on the Machmirim to do like this, which is your question, right? But not that he's saying to actually do like that. Yeah, okay. So that is the Ramah and the Machaber. So what is halacha l'maisa? Okay. So again, we have 3 potential shitas, right? Everything happens to be, as much as this is a long and difficult sugya, it's a beautiful sugya that everything lines up. From the Gemara, Rishayim, Shulchan Aruch, it all lines up. There are 3 shitas: Bedika always, Bedika 3 times, Bedika never. So now we had Ramah Machaber, unclear. Comes along the Achrayim and say, okay, let's figure this out. So already the Bach is the first one that says you have to do Bedikas forever. And now let's get into Psiskei Halacha. The kids of Shulchan Aruch and the Aruch HaShulchan come along and they say you have to do Bedikas. What's bothering you? We didn't get there yet. We're going to get there. Don't worry. What's wrong? Okay. The kids are in the Aruch HaShulchan. They say that l'chatchila is to do Bedikos La'ilam. Now, to do Bedikos La'ilam. Now, everyone here already knows that there's a bunch of big asterisks that are going to change a lot of things. Notably Sif Gimel, notably Muberes, Minekis, V'chulus. Let's get there. Next is who says, like the Rif, to do Bedikos the first 3 times. So the Chasam Sefer over here comes along and says, Hiskimu Achrein and Lashita Zu, to do Bedikas 3 times. Do Loikia Shach. The Chasam Sefer is quoted in a lot of the Shulchan Aruch on Sif Beis. The Chazanish, Archas Rabbeinu, it's really irrelevant to tell you where it is because the new printing switched it all around, and therefore, Haslach Rabbah ever trying to find anything in there, you just have to go to Niddah and look through them. But Shemaran, Hayra, Loi Kishach. Beisha Shein Lavez Kavua, Shein Tzich Bedika, Lo Lafnei Taz Lachadash. Vrak, Shalosh Pam Rishonais, Yase Bedika, Tilach Zika Shein Radam Achadash. So that you have to do Bedikos 3 times in the beginning. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, Emes Yaakov, Lamaisa Nira. What's the problem? We're good? Okay. Lamaisa Nira, Sheyesh Lahachmir V'Livdoik, Koidim Lachar Tashish Begimel Pamar Yishainis. Deloik Ashach. Okay? Rav Yashiv, Shekayim Lam Begimel Pamar Yishainis Shalachan Esuin Srichan Livdoik Atzlav Nei Tashbish V'Achrav. So we have many, and now, after now, we could go, Badi Shulchan, and Kitzur Sfarim right and left everywhere. However, the Marakain, which was the foremost Kitzur Sefer, Rabbi Reuben from Harnof, I want you to listen to his Lashon that he writes, which L'chayr is a very responsible Lashon. He says, Isha, Isha she'en leves kavua klal. Ve'ein lo yamim betucham she'ein an royabem. He says, she doesn't have a ves kavua, and she also doesn't have days that she for sure does not see. Then, meaning, within the halacha he's weaving in, 1 second. If this woman never sees till day 26, 27, doing a bedika before then might be pointless. So be careful and be wary of that nikuda, which we're going to get to in a moment. So many gedolei hayra, everyone here saw paskin to do 3 bedikos in the beginning of a couple's life. He's adding on the Chumas Hadeshin. We'll get there. If it's confusing, it's fine. It's a little bit out of order. We're going to get there in a moment. But he's on the camp, 2 bedikas 3 times, which again, you learn Shulchan Aruch, comes along the shach. And what does the shach end off with the 4 words that shook the world? Uchemiduma shekein ama davar. What does that mean? That's what you do. This is the minhag. So the shach says, don't do bedikos, and that's the minhag. So who goes with the shach? Rosh Zalman. Rosh Zalman in Shulchan Shleima, which is Sfarim based on Rosh Zalman's Psakim, also in Sefer Oitzes Taira, comes along and says, Ein srichas bedika koidim tashrash v'acharav af begimel pamim hari shainim. Similarly, Rav Sarai Dvolitsky, they quote as saying the same thing. Another Gadol b'Yerushalayim. And that's sort of where it almost ends. Why do I say sort of it almost ends? Because who are we leaving out? Heiliger Moshe Feinstein. Now what Moshe Feinstein holds is, at times difficult. Comes along Moshe, there's many tshuvas over here. There's Chelik Beis, Simin Samach Zayin, Anaf Gimel, Divri Maskal Achin. There's Chelik Gimel, Simin Nun. Those are the 2 Iker ones. And then you have, a lot of the other Paiskim, other Sfarim that quote Ramosha. But comes in Ramosha, and Ramosha says, Ein Sricha B'dika Acher Tashmish Klal Kashach Simin Kof Pei Vav B'Div Yarif Va'afilu Mitzchilas Nisueho Ve'amas Hamei Mitzad Adin Umitzad Ametzias. What exactly is Moshe adding in over there? I have theories which are not for now. What is Moshe? What's he throwing in Mitzad Adin and Mitzad Ametzias? Interesting. Yes.
Just on what
yes.
Ended off.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the Rishonim, well, maybe in the Rishonim the case was different, but
yeah.
I feel like we're talking that they got lost in the sugya.
No.
Metzias, no one really believes Machmas Tashmish.
Could be. So it doesn't make a difference. You have to. So the opposite. Your question should maybe tilt the scale the other way. We have a machlekes over here. Let's call it shach ramah, just for easy purposes, okay? And maybe one is going to say, Sarah Gadol, massive deal, go with the shach. Or maybe you're going to say, no one in the world ever blend machmas tashmir, so who cares? Fakir, be machmir, do the bedikas, and be mekayim alashitas. Why are you looking for a kula? Anyways, you know it's going to be fine.
The Ramon himself is Betzma cool, because maybe you should have
Say
to all the time, right?
Say it. That's how the Ramah Paskins. That's how the Ramah Paskins. No, that's how the Ramah Paskins. You're not more machman than the Ramah, unless you're Sephardi. But we're Ashkenazi, and therefore you're not more machman than the Ramah. Again, I don't know if the Heintige Metzias is going to tilt the scale. like I said, I have theories if when Ramosha meant mitzad adinu, mitzad mitzias, if maybe Ramosha is adding into the equation the fact that we know this isn't going to happen, so like, why are we causing aggravation? Maybe. No one says what I just said, so, you shouldn't say it either, nor should I. But Ramosha throws in that word. I don't know exactly what he means. I will mention, before... What? Oh, yeah, we're not done with Ramosha. Don't worry, we're not done with Ramosha. We're throwing in an asterisk over here. And if someone does see, again, let's just remind yourself, you go to a doctor and they take care of it, Bisman is that. So it's really, just the question of like, how much, whatever we're going to deal with over here. But Lamaisa, the doctor is basically, if there is such a mitzias, would be able to take care of it. So now, but comes along Ramosha. And now, so again, so we have 3 shitas. So what's basically the psak halacha? Massive fight. Either 3 bedikos or no bedikos. That's basically the fight over here. You want to call it, Ramosha Feinstein versus the world? It's not really true. It's Ramosha. There's a shach. There's some zalman. So is this another or some zalman of Yashiv? Again, I can't really weigh in on such a because the reason why it's a little bit interesting is because one would have thought if Ramosha is Mekel and the Shach is Mekel, you would have thought that like in America, I'll be Bashtas, everyone's going to be going with Ramosha and the Shach. That's what I would have thought at least. But they don't really. Now what they do in practicality is a different question, which maybe we'll get to. But in text, it seems like everyone is busy writing like do 3 Bedikos. That's what it seems is being written. Yeah, I'm saying in most of the Kitzur Svarim, seems that's what's being written. Well, we're going to get there in a minute. We're going to get to your Har in a minute. But now, Ramosha himself, and this is probably the problem over here, Ramosha comes along and says, Linyan Adin, this is in Yardei Chalik B'Yisem and Ayin Hey, Linyan Adin, okay. This is a third tshuva, by the way, of Ramosha. Now, one has to sit down with a fine tooth and look through all the tshuvas. But in the third tshuva, says Ramosha, Ladin, we go to Shach. Since the are machmirim meharoi lahachmir, avosagi bekinuach, and then he adds on the words ve'ein lahachmir yoser, in lahachmir yoser. So Ramosha says, do a kinuach, but don't do more. Which is like, I don't want to say interesting, but it is interesting that Ramosha is almost yelling at people that are saying, what do you mean? Rav Yashiv and the Marakayi and all the Paiskim that are saying, okay, do 3 Bedikos. Ramosha is saying, no, don't be machmir more. I found that lashon to be pretty interesting. There are those, if you look at the Badei HaShulchan, in his beer, he explains, the Fida Mekilim, they're Mekel and Gansen. They're Mekel all the way. Not like this Ramosha. Ramosha is saying, even the Fida Mekilim, you should be machmir with kinuach. By the Shulchan says the Fida Mekilim, we are Mekel all the way. So now yeah.
We're talking about Bedikos or kinuach, even the Rishonim that say you need 3.
Yes.
We're talking about Bedikos.
The Rishonim are all talking about Bedikos. Everyone has been talking about Bedikos. Ramosha, and it's based on there's a Chavis Das over here. Ramosha says that if you want to be machmir, do a kinuach. You don't have to do a full bedika. That's Ramosha came along and said kinuach. The Pischei Tshuva that you all saw already quoted this Chavis Das that said you don't need a bedika, but you should do a kinuach. Which we've seen enough times already that the Pischei Tshuva in Sivkat and Beis. Often we find that it's a bedika. If you can't do a bedika, sagi bikinuach, at least will tell us what's going on over here. So before we get to really what the psak halacha is, we have to add on a few more details. What are the few more details we have to add on? We have to add on in practicality, if one is going to do these bedikas, how to do the bedikas, and within the how is going to be what other circumstances of life have to be taken into consideration. So how and when, excuse me. By how I meant when. You are correct. So let's begin with the how. So it's miyad. You all learned in the Gemara all the way through everything. The bdika has to be miyad. Miyad. What does miyad mean? It means miyad, right away, which we learned already. You can't be lying down, okay? So you got to quickly get out of bed. And you can't wait right away. So that just means in order to get the beer that we're looking for, we need to have tashmish. The woman has to stand up right away and do a bedika or a kinuach.
Also, it has to be after the time when she
We're going to get to that's the next shot. That's the next, very good. That's the next point. But within the bedika, when is this bedika to be done? In time, you're talking about date. Very good. In time is going to be the right away. She can't be lying down. She can't be lying down, and it has to be right away. Okay, what does right away mean? You saw in the Sugya, it's pretty fast. It's pretty fast. It's pretty fast. I did see which, I don't think you want to go into that right now. Let's just say right away. Let's say right away. I don't want to make things more complicated than they have to be. Now, what date? Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't learn Dam Sulam yet.
We're about to talk about that.
But if a woman doesn't see Dam Sulam.
1 second, about to talk about that. Ask your question after you talk about it. Just as a hakdama to your question. So, how? Okay, so when we get married, we say Gimel B'Diyos Rishaynis. Comes along all the Achrayim. Now, whether this is interesting that we don't find this mentioned like in Shulchan Aruch or not, Yesh Ladin.
What, Dam Sulam?
Yeah, Yesh Ladin. Or the Shulchan Aruch assumes like certain things are mamish aleph beis. Okay, sometimes Shulchan Aruch tells us aleph beis. Okay, but over here comes along all the paiskim and they say that it can't be at a time there's going to be dam besulim. Now, what does it mean it can't be at a time there's going to be dam besulim? So now definitely Bia Rishain is out. Bia Rishain is out. I'll maybe try to address what I think you might be asking. Definitely Bia Rishaina is out. Now, is just Bia Rishaina out? So because in Mitzias, in science, often the even subsequent Bias have some Bisulim left. Now, this is possible. The lashon of the Paiskim over here is Ad she hamakas habisulim nirpa'u. The makkah heals, which is it's a beautiful lashon. It doesn't just mean that if time number 2 there was no dam, you could start with the bedikas. Because, for example, the Badi Shulchan speaks out. Listen to the way he writes it, which l'chayra is he's being machmer, but listen to the way he writes it. Avon bia shniya ve'elach nir shorayla livda gimel bedikas elu. So he's being machmer already in bia number 2. You could do bedikas, but listen to what he's addressing. Bain. Im lo yergisha ke'ev vitzar b'shas bia, bein yergisha ke'ev vitzar. That's the Badi Shulchan, he's being machmir. Many other Gedolei Achrayim, the Marakain, Rav Chatzkel Roth, and others come along and say, no, until you know that the Makkah of Bisulim healed. So we don't learn Dam Bisulim yet, but the Makkah of Bisulim, for it to be healed, means that she has to feel that it is healed. Cause, what does that mean? It could be that there was one dot of blood there, which you're not going to see at Tashmish, you're not going to see anywhere, but if she goes and does a bedika, then you're going to find it. But what are you finding? You're finding Dam Bisulim. Now, how do we know that? I'll tell you how we know that. Let's say, Badi Shulchan says, after Bia number 2, you do a bedika. Okay? Bia number 2, they do a bedika, she sees Dam. She calls up the Rav. You saw Dam. Interesting. Was the Tashmish painful? Yeah, Taka was painful. Well, it's the second time in my life. Okay, interesting. Okay, you know what? Go to Bedikos. Okay? Spend the $50, 50 shek. Perfect equivalent, and you go to the Bedikos, and they look, oh no, we see that you have a makkah, the basulim are still bleeding, we see that there's still something in there. So what does that mean? Now, whether she's a niddah or not, different shmuz. Pasha, she didn't have to be a niddah, which we're not getting involved in right now. When we learn Dam Basulim, we'll bring up the shayla again. But is this make a rasa machas tashmish? Of course not, because it wasn't machas tashmish until soon. So that's why many of the other Gedolei Achrayim are saying you have to wait until the basulim are healed. Makas b'sulim they're pa'u, and as long as you can be toiling b'sulim, you can't do these bedikas, which in practicality means, again, there's no rule, there's absolutely no rule, because some women don't have b'sulim. What do you mean some women don't have b'sulim? This is, in yeshivas you learn Gemara Ksubis. You learn Gemara Ksubis, and you learn B'sulim Nisas B'yom Revi. If you didn't find B'sulim, you get up in the morning and you take the sheet and you run to Bezdin, right? You hang it up, and what's going on? Why does she not have B'sulim? I want a divorce. And hopefully the chassan teacher tells you, calm down, Larry. Just because there was no dam doesn't mean anything. Why not? Well, one of multiple reasons. One reason might be is that you, by the way, didn't have tashmish. No, I did. I went all the way in. Okay, we'll learn Dam Basulim, and we'll figure out what's called a Bia Gemura, and we'll talk about all the science and all the raid then. But What could be is she just lost her basulim. Many women nowadays, there's no stat on such a thing, but many women nowadays, whether it's because of women are very active or other reasons, lamaisa lose their basulim before they get married. It does not mean there was anything that she did wrong before she got married. It could mean stam. She went horseback riding, which is a cause to take up basulim, whether girls were going horseback riding or not, yishladen. Or it could be she did something else, but she lost her basulim. So it could be there are no basulim, so that's stam on the side. So now, before I get to your question, a woman right after marriage, so be a rishayna, no bedika. Be a shniya, we're not going to go to Badi Yishalcha many achronim and say no bedika. It could be the still basulim. Until when do we assume there's going to be basulim? Until the makan is rapo. So let's say it's kama biyas later. So let's say you have the second round. We'll call it the second round of tashmish till she goes to the mikveh the second time, and maybe at the third round, which now we're holding. If you're doing your math, we're about 2 months after the chasana, ballpark. That's when she could start doing bedikas l'chayra. Some women are going to need longer for the basulim to be healed, and some women not. Yes, question.
Yeah, if a woman does not see blood after the first time, she's basula, right?
Good.
Say that she's still tamei al dam basulim because maybe got lost in the dark.
We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Let's say.
Let's say.
So, but over here now, we're
Yeah.
telling the woman to do bedika.
Yeah.
So, I understand why by basulim can't you tell the woman to do bedika and check over there if it was lost? Over here, there's also Sarah, right?
Okay, so when we learn Dam Basulim, it's not a question on our side, it's a question of Dam Basulim. When we learn Dam Basulim, we'll address what's bothering you. But the answer by us is, whenever in this sugi of Dam Basulim you can be taila on Dam Basulim, you can't do a bedika for tashmish.
That's also, what's bedika going to help you? Maybe there is blood.
I agree. That's why I said, as long as you can be taila the dam on Dam Basulim, the bedika will not help.
No, let's say we're going to be married for 2 months already,
Yeah.
or 3 years.
Yeah.
Now they just figured out the halacha that you
Yeah.
have to do bedika.
Good.
What's bedika going to help you?
Good. Why not?
Because maybe there was blood and just got lost in not blood from Sul, maybe there's blood from her period, Machas Tashmish,
Yeah.
and it got lost in the Zera.
Doesn't get lost if you do a bedika.
And by the Sulam also should
By Basulim, you don't have to do a bedika. So you're confused about a preconceived notion in Dam Basulim, which we're not talking about right now. I can explain very quickly. By Basulim, we're not doing a bedika. By Basulim, it's even if you don't see blood on the sheet, we could say that you are tamei because maybe there was one dot of blood and it got nismarik, I believe is the word, or something like that. It got absorbed into the zera, and therefore you don't see it. But no one ever said if you do a bedika. Here you're doing a bedika. Anytime you're doing a bedika, you're going into oisemakayim. We're assuming if there's blood there, you're going to see it. It's a different mitzias, and let's leave it at that. So that's number one. Number two is if at that point, which we could be anywhere between 1, 2, or more months after marriage, some woman takes a long time to get rid of basulim. Some women never can get rid of the basulim, and they have to go to a doctor. They have to do a medical procedure to get rid of basulim, and these are fairly common scenarios in life. Number two is if a woman becomes pregnant and they didn't get a chance to do the bedikas, the bedikas help when you're pregnant. So we saw already Rabbeinu Yerucham, as you mentioned, and all the pais can come along and say no, bedikas. Everyone agrees you do not need bedikas when she is a misulekes damim. Will it help? Let's say she did it. You don't need to. But let's say she did it. Will it create her chazaka? So again, Nachamol comes on Yasha, the Sheva Levi, and all the Gedolei Paiskim say no, it's not even going to help. Maybe during the first 3 months of pregnancy, then there are a miyot of Paiskim that are going to tell you, Rav Shlomo Zalman then folds that it's going to help. But again, if you're doing your math, it's getting pretty small over here. Now, what's most important is the Trumas Hadesh and Sif Gimel, and then we'll wrap everything up. Don't worry, we'll make it clear at the end. Comes only Trumas Hadesh and Sif Gimel. And what does the Trumas Hadesh teach you? It says the Trumas Hadesh, in the words of the contemporary poskim, there's something called a negative vest. If you know for sure that she does not see blood for Isha she'ino zakta machaber sef gimel, Isha she'ino roya b'pachs miyuda al yamin achar tefila, a woman does not see for 14 days after tefila, aval achar yudal al yamin ein la kevad yom yudalid, dina kedin Isha sheyesh la vest. She has a din of a woman that has a vest. Now, don't just go running with that statement. Let's first apply it locally, and maybe if we have time, we'll discuss if you could apply it globally. If we don't have time, it's a question we're going to have to come back to when we learn Vestais B'siyata Dishmaya. But Klabe Bedikos comes along all the Baiskim, and they say, and that's why I honed in on those words of the Marakayin, because I said he added this detail in, that even if you're going to do the Gimel Bedikas Rishainais, are you allowed to do it at a time that she knows for sure she's not going to see? The answer is no. So now, Generally. Now, whether a woman knows this or not might be a shtickle yishladin in the mitzias that maybe we could talk about. But generally, every woman has a somewhat kvias to not see before a certain date. Whatever that kvias is, whether it's before day 24, whether it's before day 26, whether it's before day 37, whatever the reason is, generally a woman has a kvias to not see. So let's play out the case. A woman has a kvias to not see before how many days?
This was established before she was married.
Oh, so that's what I said. In Balabatish Kait, you might run into an issue how they know. But let's say this is a woman that she knows. You ask the woman, when's your period? She says, about 30 days. So if it's about 30 days, is it 24 days? No. 24 is not about 30. I don't care. Keep all the jokes aside. 24 is not 30. Now, before we get to what I was about to say, how long... You'll think you know what the joke was. I'm sorry. How long... I'll tell you afterwards. Was it so funny? How long does it take to create the vest of the Trumas Hadeshin? How long?
3 months. I don't know.
How long? 3 times. 3 times. L'chayr, right? Which the Chavos Da'as says, Kid Shulchan Aruch, and others. However, interestingly enough, and it's fascinating that this is something that we have to wait all the way. Okay, Chavos Da'as discusses it, but after the Chavos Da'as, this goes Heintig, comes along Rav Elyashiv, and he says, Rakim Ya'avar, and this should remind you of a different Rav Elyashiv we had. Maybe it's a first cousin. Rakim Ya'avar to Kufa, Shel Kishana, Shlotir B'pachs Mizah. Says Rav Elyashiv, it's not a regular vest. It's not a 3-time thing. If 3 times she sees after day 25, then she has his Trumas Hadeshin. If on day time 4 she sees in 25, and day times 5 she sees in 24, and then times 7. No. Says Rav Elyashiv, she doesn't see. What was the lashon of the Trumas Hadeshin? What was the lashon of the Mechaber? Isha she'enoi roya. She doesn't see less than 14. What does that mean? She doesn't see. She doesn't see. How do you know? Because I know. How long does it take to know? Time, says Rav Elyashiv. How long is time? I don't know, ballpark, a year, a tkufa. It means if you ask this woman, what's your period? She says about 30 days. That means for sure not 25 and not 26. Maybe 27 and on, Yishladin, you have to go into this woman's life. Let's go into a regular married woman. She charts her periods. So after some time, she knows, interesting, I never see my period before day 28. Great. Maybe she says, I never see my period before day 35. Wonderful. In such a scenario, can she, and Agav, it's the same machlaikas, how you oiker this vest is interesting. How you oiker the Trumas Hadeshin vest.
That's what the last time was coming to be oiker vest, no?
No, close, but no. No, close, but no. Rav Elyashiv was doing Yemei Mevucha. And Yemei Mevucha, Rav Elyashiv also said that it's not 3 times 3, and it's not 6, doesn't depend how many days. This Rav Elyashiv is a block of time. It's a tkufa. Rav Elyashiv Mamish said it was a similar lumdis. Perhaps this is his makar. Perhaps these are very similar halachas. Yesh ladin. However, what's interesting is how long does it take to uproot it? Here, everyone agrees you can't uproot it with one time. Meaning, Lefi Rav Elyashiv, that's pashut. If she never sees before 28 and one time she sees in 24, she doesn't get rid of her Trumas Hadeshin. But even the Chavos Da'as is a maskim that one time she punk sees early doesn't uproot this vest of the Trumas Hadeshin. So what does this do for us? Now, Ramesha, I agree with your question that in Balabatishkeit we're going to have a little bit of an issue. But let's just...
Yeah, it's a problem to say based off, it doesn't make a difference that she's married or not when she's having...
No, it doesn't make a difference. Just many girls just don't know. I don't mean that there's a science difference. I just mean that many girls, I don't know, I have a period once a month. How often? I don't know. Right, but now it could be that even a girl who doesn't know will know it's a ballpark month, and they're going to know it's not. Let's go 25. I'll go lenient over here. Let's go 25. 25 is short. See, 25 and 30 is 5 days. That's almost a week. It's a long time. So let's say she knows it's not. You ask her, has it ever been within 3 weeks? No, never 3 weeks. Always 4 weeks? Around. So figure it out. So let's say 25. For argument's sake, for a moment, let's just say 25. So that means, okay, so we have marriage, we have Laila Rishayna, it's out. Good. She waits how long? After Bia Rishayna? No.
11 days.
Very good. Hopefully, B'siyat Shmaya Bita B'zmanai. Whether that works or not, we'll get there when we learn the Sugya. He means to say it's 4 and 7, not 5 and 7. Not 5 and 7. But Lamaisa, when we learn, we'll see that since nowadays many women are taking birth control pills, it's not really true. Because when she sees Dam Basulim, she also is going to see her period. because she's going to stop taking the birth control pill a day or two before the chasana, or whatever we have to deal with that. And therefore, it's not just from Dam Basulim, she didn't have a regular period. If she has a regular period, often it's going to take more than 4 days for her to clean up. So in halacha, it's true, it's 11 days, and they teach this like very violently and get all the chasana very, very excited. But in actuality, okay, you weren't taught it, I'm saying some of them do, but in actuality, they often takes 12 or 13 days, because sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's Dam Basulim, because they want to be careful, right? I know this is not a sigurd, just stam in your brain. They want to be careful. Let's say it doesn't work out the first night or the second night. So they want to make sure that she's in a not have her period till the third night. But they also want that the birth control should doesn't wear off till the third night, meaning should hold back her period. But they also want that after Dam Basulim, her period should come. Because you don't want... What? No. Again. This is just stam on the side. Often, many people, before they get married, they go on birth control to ensure it's not a chuppas nida. If they're on birth control to ensure that they're not a chuppas nida, so in practicality, we have to figure something out over here. So they want to make sure she's not a chuppas nida, which means she's going to be taking the pill until she gets married. But she's going to stop taking the pill when she gets married. Why? Whether it's one day before, whether it's the day of the chasa, whether it's the next day. Because we want that now that she didn't have Dam Basulim, her period should also come. Because you don't want Dam Basulim, 4 days later, boom, period. 5 days later, 9 and 7, 16 days, kol tov. We don't want that. So they try to plan it, very good. We try to plan it well. But either way, that was just on an aside for all those. So where were we? So fine, they get married, good. The next time, good. She goes to the mikvah. Could she do a biyah for Ros Machas Tashmish the night of the mikvah? No, because she has a best of a Chumas Dash until we said day 25. She went to the mikvah on day 13, let's say. So from 13 to 25, for the first 12 days, the first week and a half, these bedikas don't help. Okay, comes day 25, great. Baruch Hashem, they had tashmish, she does a bedika, she's clean. Okay, so far so good. Good. Day 26, comes day 27. They're together, they have tashmish, bedika is clean. Comes day 30, and what happens? Her period comes. Okay, no problem. Period came. Wonderful. Period comes. Mikvah, next month, mikvah, they're together. Could she do a bedika now? No, why not? Waits another week and a half, she has a bedika. 1 second. Is that called Ritzifus?
No, it's not.
Why not? Because very good. So you need a raya to what you're saying? You need a raya? What? You can't do bedika. It's vast Chumas Sedeshin. It doesn't help to do bedika.
Those are two tashmish that would... It's a bedika that's clean.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What do you want to say it is?
Because those are the tashmish that would cause the blood. So I did 3 times...
Maybe yes. One second, saying. Maybe yes. I'm saying maybe yes and maybe no. 1 second. One second. Let's say yes. Let me play you another case. So let's just remember, we're now 4 months married. Okay? We know that we have 2 bedikas. We're trying to get the third. We knew for the first 12 days we can't do a bedika. Why not? Because we have Chumas Sedeshin. On starting day 25 we could. They're together day 25. Half hour after Tashmish. Oi! We're supposed to do a bedika. They forgot. Uh-oh. Now comes 2 days later, day 27. Can they do a bedika now? Now you both agree. Now you have to restart. Now you have to restart. Now you have to restart. Don't have to restart. Now you have to restart.
No, not knowing, you're not going to be Megareh.
I'm not sure if you're right. Good. I did not play out this case. So that pashtus doesn't help. Everyone agrees that a bedika b'tzoich zman Chumas Sedeshin doesn't help us. Again, all of these things, there's a lot of machleksim. You should know, I will admit, Rav Yaakov Minetsky says, b'diavad, if you did a bedika within the time of the Chumas Sedeshin, it will help. It will help. Again, I played out this case for one simple reason. To show that even if you're going to be machmer the 3 bedikos, it's not the most simple endeavor. Because often, so again, there's no often in life. Every person is different. Many couples nowadays, again, this is not a heter, this is just a mitzias. Many couples nowadays start off their marriage or birth control. For how long? Depends on the couple. Some couples start off on 3 months, some couples start off 6 months, some couples start the first year on birth control. So the first year they're on birth control, this whole thing is out the window. And then by the second year, when they're off of birth control, often what happens, they become pregnant. If you become pregnant, this doesn't work. And then what happens, if you're nursing, this doesn't work. Even if you're not nursing, Even if you're not nursing, very many poskim hold that you have 2 years to whatever. If you now are holding 4 years after marriage, can you now do a bedika? So you would say, why not?
Can you or do you have to? What's the question?
Either one. Says the Shevet Levi, doesn't help. Doesn't help anymore. Too late. You missed it. Why? Like you all said, you were together 400 times. Don't please start doing math. You were together 400 times, and I know, and there was no dam. So now you can start doing bedikas. The lush of the Shevet Levi is that it's a. I think Shevet Levi. Who did I say? Someone says it's kechuchuk teluya. It's like that was the Zera Shmuel. Berkowitz attended. He said that if you know the halacha and you don't do it, now if you don't know the halacha and you only were taught the halacha a few years after marriage, then someone attain that maybe now will help. Berkowitz in that case was noita. Maybe it will help. And
The whole problem is to make you get divorced. What does it mean?
no, to give you this chazaka, to give you the risk chazaka, cheskes taira.
Fine also.
No, it's not according to the Ramah. What do you mean? According to the Ramah, you have to do b'dikas the rest of your life. Good. I want to conclude. So now, what's the psak halacha? Psak halacha. This is the psak halacha. This is no. You ready for psak halacha?
It doesn't say anything.
This is psak halacha. B'dikas begin with Rishayim. Ready? This is how you teach your chassan. I spoke to a chassan teacher this morning, and he said this is how he teaches a chassan. I don't think he does it in this nusach, but it's how you teach a chassan. Says the Shulchan Aruch, the first 3 times, Isha has to do a bedika before and after tashmish, in order to assure that there's no such thing as ras adam machas dashish. The Shach argues, you don't have to do bedikas. Not only that, you shouldn't do the bedikas, because if you do the bedikas, shemali benakva parish. Ul halacha, nachlich kuba zeh apaiskim liyish lishol l'mayir hayra eich liznahik. Chayr, that's a psak halacha. Chayr, that's psak halacha. Usually, if you teach this to a chassan, what's he going to conclude?
So what do I do? Don't do it.
That's what he's going to conclude. Right. L'chayr, that's what he's going to conclude.
The Chassid Rebbe is the Rav.
Right. So when the Chassid Rebbe, with a straight face, says, yeah, there's both opinions, and you'll ask a shayla, he says, oh, okay, he writes down his notes, we'll ask a shayla, and then he gets married, and 6 months later, the Chassid Rebbe calls him up for the obligatory follow-up, which should be obligatory, unfortunately it isn't, and that's a different discussion, and the Chassid Rebbe says, no, what happened to 3 bedikas? You never called? He says, oh, I forgot to call. And he says, but okay, it's too late now, whatever it is. But l'chayra, all joking aside, this is how many, this is I'm not exaggerating, many chassid teachers, the way that they teach is that there is a concept to tell them that there's such a thing called the first 3 bedikas, and you could ask a shayla, or some will say, there are some that are machmir. Some are machmir to do these 3 bedikas. L'chayra, it's not wrong to teach such a thing because Ramosha, and let's see the chassid again. You want to play it on real life? I'll play it in real life. Okay, one second. In real life, if a chassid were to say, okay, Tachlis, Rabbi, what should I do? So if he says it like that, b'vaday, he's not doing the 3 bedikas. If he says, b'chavod Rav, because it's a different bacher, the guy who says, yo, Rabbi, what should I do? Clearly, he should not be doing these 3 bedikas. But if he says, chveis, l'choyra, then also you shouldn't do them. Different shmooze. But if he says, no, but the truth is, listen, Chaver, what should I tell you? All joking aside, Ramosha is Ramosha is Ramosha. So at most, you would say to do a kinuach. Most do a kinuach. If you do all the math, and that's sort of why I played out these cases, because maybe you will get a case, maybe you won't get a case. Maybe there will be a pregnancy, maybe there won't be a pregnancy. Maybe they are on birth control, maybe not on birth control. If they're on birth control, this whole conversation is out the window because you can't do the bedikas anyways. Then you have to worry about it after birth control.
Or even if she's not on birth control, you still have to worry.
That's what I'm saying. You have to worry about the Chuvas Hadashin. So now you have a Moshe Shaila, they don't know the Chuvas Hadashin. So what are you going to tell them? Okay, so probably the first week and a half after the mikveh, you can't do these bedikas. It gets a little bit difficult. Now, I'm giving you the Tzaddik Kula. Does that mean if we have a Kaddish Mirachem, don't know if it exists in America. Let's say it does. No, it definitely exists. It shouldn't be so not nice. It does. It definitely exists. If you have a Kaddish Mirachem and so on, and Kaddish Mirachem means he's a really good guy. Yeah, really good. Tired to get yid. He, regular, normal, whatever the case is. I don't call it normal. It's not normal. It's Messias. What? It's too late. You can't become Kaddish Mirachem now. The mikveh doesn't work now. It's too late. Can't reborn. Either way, the Mikvah says reborn. So either way, the Lamaisa is there's definitely a market to be machmir. But again, being a Talmud of the Igros Moshe, what do I believe that certainly can't be more machmir than a kinuach. That's what? That's what Moshe says. So if Moshe says not to be more machmir than a kinuach, I would at most allow a kinuach. I do believe in the mitzias, it's very difficult to get there. If it's very difficult to get there, and the Shach and Ramosha are easily makel, I don't believe, and this is not my opinion, this is where many of the chassid teachers that don't teach us b'chlal, as many people in this room affirmed, and many of the Kal teachers don't teach it b'chlal. Some will say, how can they not teach it? The answer is, once Ramosha, once with the Shach, and Ramosha said most of kinuach. And now we're adding on that Lamaisa is a practicality issue over here with the Besulim, and with the Chumas Hadeshen, and with the pregnancy, and all these things together. L'chayra is very, very mistaver. I conclude, perfect that we have 4 minutes left, because I didn't want to discuss this next point too deeply. Because when you finish Kuf Pei Vav, there's really one more shayla. What? I didn't really, perhaps on purpose. If you can do it after, you can do it before. Seder. Once we're concluding after, before and after. Now, you finish Al Kuf Pei Vav, and you continue reading the Rameshas, and Ramesh reminds you, but 1 second, this whole sugya began with what? When a woman does Bedikos before and after Tashmish. Yesh lavest or ein lavest. Let's go all the way back to the Gemara Niddah that we started with today. The yesh lavest and ein lavest. What do you do with ein lavest? When do you do the Bedikos? We got into Chumas Hadeshen and we called her a woman that doesn't have a vest but does have a vest. Beautiful. But now the question is, what happens Ovra Zman HaVest? Once the Zman of the vest passes, now many Achrayim jump on the bandwagon. And once the Zman HaVest passes, many Achrayim come along. We have 3 minutes. I will finish in time. B'siyata d'shmaya. Many Achrayim jump on the bandwagon and say, over Zman HaVest, you have to do Bedikos. Because even if we're going to be makel like Ramesha, even if we're going to be makel like the Shach, but that's only going to be until the Zman HaVest, as Ramesha himself says. But over Zman HaVest, now you can't do anything. Now you have to start doing Bedikos. Now you're all asking me, what do you mean over Zman HaVest? She doesn't have a vest. Yes, what I mean to say is a vest of whatever her vest she'ena kavua is, whatever her, even when she passes her in a bainus. What do we do now? So the answer to this question is, that comes along, many Achrayim, Ramosha Baroshim, and says, you have to do Bedikos. Ramosha says Bedikos. Rav Shlomo Miller comes along and he says, Umikol Makim, at least, Te'aseh lepachot kinuach. At least do a kinuach, kaidem dashmish, ad shetire, until she gets her period, until she knows she's pregnant. So now, what I would like to conclude with is a line here from the Oyel Sarah and Rav Forsheimer. Okay, this is how we're going to conclude. Oyel Sarah says, "Avra ves loy rasa madinai." Says Oyel Sarah, "Isha she'avra leh kol yamim shalaves she'ini kavua shrich lachish dain l'rasa avshin materes l'bayla medina." Medina, she passed 28, she passed Yom HaChedesh, she passed Aflagi, she passed Einabenis, day 32, she's mother. And he's coming from Ramesha. To make sure she's not going to see blood. V'hanisayon, what does nisayon mean? And the tests, meaning in practicality, have proven meichiach shudavar nachatz. This is a very important thing. On the bottom over here, he says, go look at the Haskama to my Sefer from Rav Forsheimer. When Rav Forsheimer writes the Haskama to this beautiful Sefer, and Rav Forsheimer writes, Yishlisbach al kunchis hazeh halach l'maisa. Incredible words to write. But Rav Forsheimer then says, by the way, he wrote over Yom HaVest that you have to do Bedika. He says, Hinei, this is Ramesha. You have to do Bedika. And Rav Forsheimer says, and many people asked, I don't understand. Ramesha, you made this up. What happened? Why not? Which is a question I think in this room we've asked many times. Over Yom HaVest, we didn't find anything, but like Ramesha is saying, do Bedika, what do you do? So he says, you know why? He says the reason is because Bizman Chazal, there were something called Argashas. They would know if their period is coming, the whole shell would be out the window. Move on. He says, you have a kesem, this and that, you have to wait. He writes over here, someone was asked me yesterday, what's the source? Rav Forsheimer writes, 24 hours. Why? Because we know that something's going on over here. And he says, V'gam zeh lo nizkar b'paiskim hakadmonim. Why? Because it never was relevant. And this happens to be many contemporary paiskim. I will mention that the quote from Rav Gusman and others that Lamaisa, you don't have to be worried about this. But l'chayra, the answer is, like Rav Shimon Miller said, or better yet, the Sefer Shevet HaGershuni from, I think it's the Yid Rav Zimmerman. I don't know if it's the same one I know from Eretz Yisrael. But he writes, you don't have to do Bedika. But Chacham Einav B'Roishai. You passed your Vestrum Sadashin. You passed your Yamar Chaydish. You passed Flaga. You passed Aina Bainis. You passed everything. It's day 33. And what are you going to do? You're just going to say, oh, no period, go and be together? Be careful. Be careful. And that's the Psak Halacha. If you're not going to be like Ramesha, do a Bedika after. After. What do you mean after? No, Bedika before, excuse me. Before. Yeah. So no, but it comes from here because once we're discussing here, Isha She'in Lavas, what's the din? We have a machlekes Bedika La'ilam versus Bedika 3 times versus no Bedika at all.
That's to see if
it's both, but it's Kaidem and Achar. But it's the same sugya. Kuf Pei Vav Beis was the stira to the Shach that you saw on Kuf Pei Dalid. All the different mahalchim, what do we do with an Isha Shein Lavesa? She have to do Bedikas La'ilam. And when you learn Kuf Pei Dalid, many people are asking, it sounds like there's a very reputable sheet over here in the Shach, and it sounds like we're quoting Kuf Pei Vav Beis, that you have to do Bedikas La'ilam. So what in the world's going on over here? Ramesha comes along and says, yes, do Bedikas La'ilam after the Yom HaVest. So other places say, okay, don't do Bedikas La'ilam, but at least do a Kinuach, or at least just be smart. What do you mean be smart? We're done with curries. You guys all learned Kuf Pei Hey. You all learned the terrible tshuva, the Gevaldige tshuva for the terrible Aveira. So, what do you have to do? You just have to be smart. That's what we conclude.